There's a barrier where if somebody accuses them of abuse of some kind, then the public school can say, no, you cannot homeschool. This is not to the degree that somebody's been charged with a crime or that a investigation has revealed something. Just if an investigation has been opened due to an allegation.
It's hard to wrap your head around, especially with the freedoms that we have here in California. It's one bad law away from drastically changing everything.
Freedom is everyone's business. We have to re-engage people in our culture in protecting our freedom.
Welcome back to the California Homeschool Podcast, where we come alongside families across the state to inform, equip, and encourage you on your homeschool journey. I'm Angela Lasch. Today, we are sitting down with someone many of you already know and trust, Nathan Pierce. He is the Executive Director of Family Protection Ministries. If you listened to January's podcast, you'll remember Nathan walked us through the start of the legislative session and what was ahead for California homeschool families. But now here we are at the halfway mark of 2026, and a lot has happened both here in Sacramento and across the country. So, in this mid year freedom briefing, Nathan is going to give us a look at where things stand, and we're going to talk about the bills and trends California families need to be watching. We're also going to take a sobering look at what just unfolded in Connecticut with House Bill 5468 and what it tells us about the broader national climate. And then we're going to turn our attention to something really exciting. Family Protection Ministries, alongside CHIA, are hosting Homeschool Freedom Day 2026 on September 12th at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. This year carries extra weight as Family Protection Ministries celebrates 40 years of ministry, and our nation marks its 250th anniversary. So, whether you're a brand new homeschool mom, a seasoned dad, or somewhere in between, this conversation is for you. Our freedoms are not automatic. They are stewarded and defended and protected one generation at a time. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get started. Well, hello, Nathan. Welcome back to Chia's California Homeschool Podcast. It's so good to see you.
Thanks, Angela. It's great to be here. I'm so glad to get to visit with you again.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we did just see each other at convention last weekend, so that was very exciting, a very fruitful event for all the homeschoolers that attended. I'm so glad to have you back on the podcast. I realize it's been just about 6 months, so this is a good time to check in. But in case anybody might not be familiar with you or with Family Protection Ministries or missed the January podcast, now they'll have to go back and listen.
Yes,
But please just tell me a little bit about yourself and your work at Family Protection Ministries.
sure. So I grew up in the homeschool community here in California, attending CHIA conferences with my parents and was homeschooled K through high school and met my beautiful wife, Betsy, at college. She was homeschooled as well. And we now have 8 wonderful children that we homeschool as well. Well, we've graduated our first two. We've got 6 more to go. So we're in it for a while here ourselves. And we just really are appreciative of the homeschool freedom that we have in California and also just the opportunities that we have, the community that we have here in California to homeschool alongside of. And Chia is a big part of that. So we appreciate Chia and want to continue to support Chia and the work that Chia is doing to really encourage and bless the homeschool community to keep it strong here in California, because that's really important for not just the community today, but for the future of the homeschool community and movement. And part of that is homeschool freedom and the work we do at Family Protection Ministries. At FPM, myself, I work full time at Family Protection Ministries, and my wife and my kids are all involved in the work here that we do to protect homeschool freedom here in Sacramento. What we do is we monitor the legislature and read the bills that come through the legislature, which keeps us quite busy. And we engage on those bills that would impact generally things that homeschool families care about, but specifically we focus on homeschool freedom and our ability to continue to teach our kids at home and raise them up for God's glory. And so that's our focus. And that's what we've been doing at Family Protection Ministries for 40 years now.
Yes, praise God. That is very exciting. We're very thankful for the work that you and your team, your family have just invested over all of these years. So what's been happening since we talked in January? Is there anything we need to be concerned about? Anything you're monitoring?
Well, it has been a busy year. There's nothing been a really huge like anti-homeschooling in Sacramento this year. We have had a couple of bills that we have been working on amendments for here and there. One of the bills that we're grateful for an amendment in currently that's still active is a bill that mandates kindergarten in California. But right now, the way that it's worded, because of our amendment language, it doesn't apply to private homeschool families. So it's not going to affect us. This is something that we've fought against over 30 times here in California. You know well the routine that we have to deal with all the time, but it's continually proposed by the California Teachers Association. But right now, it's exempting private schools, private homeschools from the current bill. And that bill is parked at the moment because right now the legislature's on recess, which I love when the legislature's on recess. It's a beautiful time. So they're taking a break right now, but they will be back early next month. So we are praying that nothing new or bad pops up. Sometimes things do, sometimes they don't. But right now, we don't have anything that we're calling for action on right now.
Very good. Yes, we're also happy when they're on recess. We're thankful that California seems quiet right now. Yeah, we do know that that was not the case in other states. And even though people are listening thinking this is the California Homeschool Podcast, why should I care about what's happening in other states? But we know two big things happened in Nebraska and Connecticut this year. So those states weren't as, I don't want to use the word lucky because we know God is sovereign and he knows
Yeah,
what's happening. But what can you tell us a little bit about what's happened in those states and why we should care about it
yeah.
in California?
Yeah, we've had many battles over the years here in California, and they don't always start in California. And other states have had battles too, and those don't always start in their states either. Sometimes they start in California. And so, looking at Nebraska and Connecticut, Nebraska was had a bill that actually passed, was signed into law earlier this year, that essentially what it does is it allows for uh, homeschool families who previously could just pull their kids out of public school and begin to homeschool them in Nebraska. Now there's a barrier where if somebody accuses them of abuse of some kind, then the public school can say, no, you cannot homeschool. And so if there's a social services investigation launched because somebody makes a phone call and accuses the family of something, this is not this is not to the degree that somebody's been charged with a crime or that a investigation has revealed something. Just if an investigation has been opened due to an allegation from somebody. So anyone can start an allegation and cause that investigation to be opened. So if that happens to a family in Nebraska, they cannot start homeschooling, which is a travesty. It's a significant change in how homeschool law operates in Nebraska and the freedom that parents have, because you could easily see how if somebody's not getting along well with a teacher or an administrative official at a public school and they decide, okay, we want to pull our kids out of this school, if somebody gets wind of that at the public school, somebody could make a false allegation to social services about the family, which would trigger an investigation, causing the family to be not allowed to withdraw their child and homeschool. And these investigations can go on and on. They can be carried forward without having any sort of conclusion or resulting decision from social services that allows a family to then move on. These things can go on and on for up to a year or even longer in some cases. So it is a law, a change in the law that's going to impact families that want to choose to pull their kids out of school. So that's Nebraska, and I am expecting that that will go to court, but I don't know the timeline on that. They have had a few battles over the years. in Nebraska. And so we want to be aware of that, partly because the group behind this new law in Nebraska is the same CRHE group that was behind our battle in California in 2018 when we had two bills proposed to both require home inspections for all homeschool families and also revamp the homeschool law to require teacher credentialing for parents, state mandated curriculum, state testing, all of those kinds of things. This was the same group that was behind this bill in Nebraska. So it's not an isolated incident, is what I'm trying to say. It's something that comes out of this group's push for really change to homeschool laws in every state is their goal. And they would look at that in Nebraska as a victory. In fact, they have issued statements about how that is a victory for them and a victory for homeschooling because they need more restrictions on homeschooling. They want more state control. They view very much the government as the one responsible for education and the upbringing of children, and parents can help with that, but they need to be submitting to the government in how the government wants to control that. So that's Nebraska. Connecticut happened just a few weeks later, and the governor of Connecticut signed into law a bill that requires background checks for parents, for all parents, before they start homeschooling. So that means there doesn't have to be an allegation. There just has to be everybody has to get a background check before they're allowed to homeschool, which means that parents have to prove their innocence both in Nebraska and in Connecticut. In Connecticut, it's a little broader because it doesn't care. They don't care. This new law doesn't care if a family has their kids in public school already or not. If you are just starting to homeschool, you have to get a background check regardless of where your kids have been previously. So in this case, it's a presumption that every parent is guilty until they prove themselves innocent with a background check to be allowed to homeschool in the state of Connecticut. And again, this is the same group pushing this bill in Connecticut, CRHE, that did the bill in Nebraska and pushed the bills back in 2018 here in California. And they are somewhat celebrating both of those victories that they had this year on getting more restrictions on homeschooling. But they've also said very clearly that these are just the first step in what they really want to get passed in every state, which is the big picture of that you can find in the Make Homeschool Safe Act, which is a proposal, a um, lengthy legislative package that includes a lot of restrictions on homeschooling, including public schools having more authority over whether a kid can be pulled out of public school and begin to homeschool, training requirements for parents, education level requirements for parents before they're allowed to homeschool, state curriculum standards, mandatory testing, all of those things kind of are part of CRHE's bigger picture of what they would like to see every state adopt. And so these bills that passed in Nebraska and Connecticut are just the first step from their perspective towards better laws for homeschooling, which of course we see the complete opposite of that. But the next step that they have pursued along the last couple of months here is they're also pursuing they've done a online training for legislators and legislative staff for state legislatures across the country to train them how to write new homeschool laws in their state. Um, so they're making themselves available to help states write new restrictions on homeschooling, but they're also doing training seminars online to help them get started. So, yeah, it's something that's very concerning for us here in California because they've been here already, and it's just a matter of time before they come back. So, and these are pretty egregious shifts in the law to assume that everybody's guilty. It's kind of the opposite of how our country was founded. We don't think that way in our country. Assume somebody's guilty. It's ridiculous from my perspective, and it's hard to picture that somebody would pass this, but it's happened. And both Nebraska and Connecticut have adopted these new laws. So it's something we have to recognize. This is very real, and if it happened in Nebraska, it could happen here in California.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. Um, just from just the worldview of who actually is responsible for raising and educating children, the parents or the government. So you see the clear shift there. But just knowing that there's an organization out there whose sole purpose is to undermine everything that Family Protection Ministries, CHIA, HSLDA have been fighting for 50 years. And just it's one bad law away from drastically changing everything. Even when I continue to hear what happened in Connecticut, just that a new family would need a background check, like, it's hard to wrap your head around, especially with the freedoms that we have here in California. And there might be California families still listening, like, well, it's still not happening here. I just am trying to, focus on homeschooling my kids and paying the bills. Like, I can't worry about that right now. And I'm super thankful we have these, you and HSLDA, CHIA, just monitoring this, but homeschool families, they do need to get involved. They do need to be aware, and I know that's something Family Protection Ministries, you are trying to help families do that in the easiest, least painful
Yeah.
way to understand advocacy and what that means, and so you have amazing events like the one that's coming up in September, to celebrate all that's happening, and that's Homeschool Freedom Day. So
Yeah.
how does what's happening across the country, how does that, like, relate to families in California attending Homeschool Freedom Day?
So we kind of have 2 things that are meeting, this year. We have our country's 250th anniversary, of freedom, and our idea of American liberty, and which again is the opposite of what we're looking at in Kentucky in Connecticut. So we have our 250th anniversary of our country, and then we have these bills that are being pushed, and our concern over more legislation that would impact homeschool families and their ability to teach their kids here, both in California and across the nation. But our focus being specifically California, we're trying to really bring these ideas together for people to understand where we are at right now with our homeschool freedom, with our parental rights, with our outlook for the future. So we will be covering a little bit of history at Homeschool Freedom Day, but we're also going to be talking about the threats that are coming that we can expect over the coming whether it's months or years. It would be very unwise for us to not for us to assume that we're not going to be hit with more legislative threats here in California. I mean, we get some legislative threats to homeschool freedom or families every single year here in California, and that's not going away. But I think it's reasonable to expect that we're going to be seeing bigger and worse threats to our homeschool freedom, especially looking at what's gone on in other states. And it wasn't just this year we've seen threats to homeschool freedom in other states. Last year, Kentucky and Michigan saw threats. The year before that, it was a couple of other states. So it's not like these are isolated incidents, and they're most of these threats are connected back with CRHE, who is pushing harder than ever right now. And so we need to be aware of that. Homeschool Freedom Day is happening at the Reagan Library, which also kind of fits in with this big picture of freedom and the idea that our country is founded on the idea of individual liberty and individual responsibility, which is something that we look at homeschooling and we say, yeah, homeschooling is built on religious freedom and parental rights. That's kind of what the foundational arguments are from a legal perspective for homeschooling. When we look at what the Reagan Library represents, we see an incredible museum. By the way, it's an incredible museum that represents the things that Ronald Reagan promoted and others that were part of his movement to not just preserve liberty, but sort of regain the ideas of the American dream that had been partially lost back then, during his time and prior to him being our president, but also now as we look at where our country is, and particularly the attacks on homeschool freedom and parental rights, it's helpful for us to look back and see the the ways that God has brought about victory, the ways that God has helped us with our maintaining our freedom in our country or regaining some, and then look at where we stand today and recognize those freedoms were not won by people sitting around doing nothing or by families that stayed at home and only focused on their own business. Freedom is everyone's business. And so we have to re-engage people in our culture in protecting our freedom. And that's what we're trying to do with Homeschool Freedom Day is try to help people see the freedom that you have today only exists because people fought for it. Not just once, not just twice, a bunch of times throughout history, and people are continuing to fight for that freedom. We have Zan Tyler, who's, spoken at CHIA conventions before, and she has been involved in fighting for homeschool freedom, for many years. And, we also have Will Estrada from HSLDA, who's an attorney that's also he's done a lot of work on, parental rights and also on homeschool freedom over the years. He was homeschooled as well. Zan was a homeschool mom. We also have Robert Bortons from Classical Conversations. Robert is a homeschool dad. He was also homeschooled himself. So you're seeing a pattern here. We are going to be talking about the history of freedom and where we stand today and how we can make a difference moving forward. We also have Jennifer Avila, who is really great at building relationships with legislators as a homeschool mom with her kids and teaching others, bringing others in, helping them to learn how to really have effective meetings with legislators and their staff from a homeschool mom's perspective. Somebody who doesn't read bills for a living. She's somebody who likes to make a difference by going in and visiting them in their local district offices near her house. And that's something that we are trying to encourage people to do particularly before there's a battle, because if we build those relationships before there's a battle, we'll have much higher rates of success in the battles. And so we really want to train people how to be engaged as well as inspire them to, really get into the appreciation of the liberties and the freedoms that we have. So we're looking forward to that. I know Robert has a book out. It's called Woke and Weaponized. It's by Robert Bortons and Alex Newman. And this book is incredible, talking about America's basically America's history of education, but also how we as parents can regain our freedom, and we need to be engaged in that. That book is available when you register for the conference, and then you can even have them sign it right there at the conference. Also, we will be, Zan Tyler has a book called Refined, a Homeschool Mom's Guide to Trust. And this book is also going to be given to our attendees at the event as well. So, with the people that are there talking about homeschool freedom, both the history and the how to engage now, we're really hoping this event will not just be an encouragement and a blessing to the families, although I do hope for that. I really hope that it will help people wake up to the need for engagement. I'm looking forward to everybody coming.
I am too. I'm so excited for this event. You've got like this superstar lineup of like all the people. I'm like, oh, they're all going to be in the same room. I can't wait.
Yes, it's going to
Yes.
be incredible.
And at the Ronald Reagan Library. So, that's just like a like the cherry on top. You're like, yay, and it's at a great location.
And there's a cherry on top of the cherry because this year they have a 250th special display there at the Reagan Library, and it's the last week of that display. So that's a special exhibit that every all of our attendees will have free access to that exhibit as well as the whole museum. So it's going to be great if you want to learn more about the 250 years of American freedom. It's a great opportunity for you and your family.
So this is an amazing conference, amazing speakers, a homeschool field trip, combined with fellowship and a history lesson. Like you pretty much covered all the bases in one day. So people don't even have to do school the rest of the month because if they attend Homeschool Freedom Day, they've checked off like all
A
the
lot of
boxes that
boxes. You're
day.
right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely. Yeah, it's September 12th, and it starts in the morning on September 12th. Our event runs 9:30 to 2:30, and then you have the rest of the afternoon to visit all the exhibits at the museum. So you'll have a great, very full, but wonderful day.
Okay, yes, we can't wait. So yes, we will definitely see you in September. Any final words of encouragement, specific prayer requests just for Sacramento?
Yeah, I would just ask for prayer for the work that we're doing here as the legislative recess comes to an end. There's always a final sort of push of madness with lots of amendments to bills, and it's a little tough to stay on top of all of those. In August, we have some family stuff coming up, so it can be really busy on a regular year. But this year, we have a daughter getting married in August, and another daughter going to college in August. So it's a bit of a full month as the legislature comes back in the midst of all of that. So pray for our family and just that I'd be able to find everything that I need to and be on top of that. But you can also pray that we don't have anything new related to homeschooling that gets introduced in August, because that can always happen as well. So pray for those things. We just are grateful for everybody that's engaged on these topics.
You got it. Thank you so much just for everything you're doing up in Sacramento, for fighting the good fight. I'm sure it's gets exhausting sometimes, but the Lord's strengthening you, I can tell, and just giving you an amazing team and family. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. So glad to be here. And yeah, check out the Homeschool Freedom Day on our website.
Nathan, thank you so much for spending this time with us today and for the steady, faithful work that you and Betsy and your whole team at Family Protection Ministries pour into California. The homeschool families across this state, we need you, and we're so grateful for your partnership and your perseverance. So, friends, if there is one takeaway from today's conversation, it's this: our homeschool freedom in California did not happen by accident, and it will not be persevered by accident either. It's been protected by parents who showed up, prayed, called their legislators, and stood in the gap. And today, that includes you. So here are a few simple next steps. First, mark September 12th on your calendar and plan to join us at Homeschool Freedom Day 2026 at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Please visit Family Protection Ministries website, fpmca.org, to register. And you'll also be able to hear about all the incredible speakers on their website as well. This is going to be a great day for the entire family, complete with access to the Reagan Library and their special 250th anniversary exhibit. But please also be praying for Nathan, Betsy, and the entire FPM team in the weeks leading up to September 12th. Pray for protection and provision, and just their hearts would be strengthened. Pray also for our legislators in Sacramento, and that the Lord would grant wisdom and that California families would continue to enjoy the freedom to educate their children according to their values. And if this episode blessed or challenged you, please share it with another homeschool family. So many parents have no idea what is happening behind the scenes to protect their right to homeschool, but you can be the one that informs them and encourages them and invites them to stand alongside us. And remember, we serve a God who is sovereign over every legislative body and every season. Our hope is never in policy, but through that, we steward our influence faithfully. Our hope is in the Lord who called us to this work and who equips us for it. So until next time, keep pressing forward in your homeschool journey, and may the God who called you continue to lead you and strengthen you. God bless you.
Brought to you by thepodcastupload.com, empowering faith-driven voices.